Edge of Chaos, starring Neurotoxin and Joe Ryan. Edge of Chaos is a free-flowing discussion, occasionally dealing with mature topics. Alright everybody, welcome back to another Edge of Chaos. No, you're not hallucinating. We're back again after kind of a long layoff, and I have to cop to the reason why that is. I am now in enemy territory, the great state of Texas. I finally moved out. I left California for good, so sorry Neurotoxin, you guys can all burn as far as I care. I'm kidding. I'm joking. Yes, Greg Abbott is now my governor, and Ted Cruz is now my senator, and I now want to stab myself in the eye.
So wait. So that's what's changed from Jerry Brown and Dianne Feinstein.
But Boxer's retiring though. Boxer's retiring. You guys have a chance there.
God, I can't wait to see who takes her place.
Can you imagine? Oh my God.
Oh, God.
Any California election that big is a circus by default, isn't it? I mean, good Lord.
Okay, I got one term for you there. Meg Whitman versus Jerry Brown.
Oh boy.
It's like staring at a case of 10-inch dildos, deciding which one you want to get raped with.
Oh my God, I love that we're starting the show with a colorful metaphor like that.
A colorful, different color. That's the only difference.
See, that's what happens, folks, when we have time off. We save up all the colorful metaphors and they all come out all at once.
So,
perhaps that's not the figure of speech I wanted right after your metaphor. Anyway.
So, speaking of color, Joe, how do you like that we've essentially entered the age of circus politics?
Oh, my
we've
God.
ridiculed the media and we've ridiculed politicians on this show quite a bit. And I feel zero remorse. I feel zero sympathy. I stand by every word I say.
Especially when they deserve it, yes. And they usually do.
I mean, they always deserve it. But these last few weeks, one of the reasons I haven't been burning to do a show is because there's nothing to do a show on. It's all just, especially here in the United States, like you can talk about some of the things going on in the Middle East or in Europe. But in the United States, it just seems like it's all like an enclosure of monkeys throwing shit at each other.
Basically.
There's another colorful metaphor, but I mean, colorful and well scented.
Yeah, and there's several different avenues we can drive down it, but I want to go. So Crazy Town has several streets, and let's go down Anti-Vaxxer Boulevard for a little while. And
you want to start there? Okay, we'll start.
I am just shocked because this issue, and I got mad earlier actually talking to a friend of mine about this. I literally got I had a moment of, you ever have the thing where you turn into Lewis Black? You think of how stupid a thing is, and you just start going, God damn it, fucking stupid. Like you can't stop yourself from going off.
Right.
Like you just can't. So I get that. But over this, it's amazing, and it's rare in America these days, especially when a thing can unite left and right. And seeing this vax debate go on now, and if anyone's been living under a rock, it's because of these measles cases in California. Of course, California. Why do you think I left? For these, all these indigo children who didn't get vaccinated because these parents just know so much better than doctors do, apparently, who don't have degrees, who don't have medical training. They know better than 60 years worth of doctors. They're not vaccinating their kids, and now we're having return of diseases that we thought were dead. That's what's been going on. So the ability of this issue to turn people from both left and right into A, armchair experts, and B, complete fucking morons is just shocking to me.
Usually at the same time.
And how it gets left these hippie, Whole Foods shopping, organic, I need to have everything be not this and not that. People joining hands with the complete extreme anti-government regulation folks and agreeing on this issue without one scintilla of medical evidence behind them has been stunning. And it's just shocking to me, and I wonder what in the hell happened to this country. And it's funny because it's only a thing that can happen in America, I swear to God. Because you got Africa, believe me, they understand the value of a vaccine in Africa, all right? Let's just put it that way. This is a place where measles and plague and shit still kill people. All right?
It's amazing how you value something when you don't have it, right?
Especially when you're dying of it left and right. I mean, we're to the point now where no one, like, you'd have to ask somebody's grandmother who maybe their, like, older siblings or uncles got polio. Like, we're to that point. It's been gone so long, some of these diseases, that people don't remember anyone having it. And now it's like, oh, we don't need vaccines. That stuff's eradicated, right? No, moron.
Okay. let's lay out some of the dry facts about this real quick, just so we're all on the same page, just so we understand what we're talking about. First of all, I'm going to give you a basic breakdown of how vaccines work. And as most of our listeners know, I spent 5 years working in medical management. We learned about infection control. This is not rocket science. This is shit that's been around for over 100 years. It's very well understood. It's not esoteric. If you open up any medical journal, if you queue up WebMD and look, just do 20 minutes of research, you will understand this. This is not something you have to be a doctor to understand. So all these idiots reading Alternet,
right,
and thinking,
or Natural News,
vaccines don't work. Shut up! You're an idiot, and you're getting to the point where your idiocy is going to kill somebody.
And it very well could. People don't realize measles isn't just an unpleasant illness; it kills people.
It does. So let's talk about how vaccines work. Vaccines are not 100% effective. Okay, the case.
Never. Let's start there. They are never, ever 100% effective. That doesn't mean they're not worth having. Anyway, go on.
Right. I've been actually bashing heads of some of our own followers, because we have followers who have the tinfoil hat fashion.
Right.
And they think it's cute now to come out of the
we'll get to that.
Vaccines don't work. Shut up.
I will comment on that real fast. That everything nowadays is a fucking conspiracy. And this is where we've come round the bend now. We're literally through the looking glass of internet conspiracy finding, where everything, even like the most basic shit now, is some kind of nefarious plot from the depths of hell somewhere to control you. Even vaccines. It's just ridiculous.
Yeah, I'm going to become very rich one day by inventing some sort of a non-lethal weapon, like maybe a paintball gun.
Yes.
That you can shoot people with through the internet. Where if you see someone saying something stupid, it's like, shut up, bang. They go up, and then they have like this paintball mark on their forehead. Oh, I'm an idiot. I said something stupid and conspiratorial.
Yeah.
Right? I can't. They're just like, they're everywhere. They're like cockroaches. So let's talk about how vaccines work. Vaccines are not 100% effective. Some people are still going to get sick. Some people are going to get sick when they get the vaccine. That's the point. You're learning how to respond to it. So people with weak immune systems, for whatever reason, there's going to be a few cases still. So if you're judging a vaccine by that, you just don't know what you're talking about. The idea is that viruses, obviously, are living things, and they evolve, and they mutate. But just like people, just like any other species, they need billions and billions of lives to evolve and mutate. So the idea behind vaccines is to stop epidemics, to stop these viruses from spreading to enough people to mutate.
Right.
So when that happens, even though you still have a few cases here and there, and there's people who aren't vaccinated, there's always a few cases. What happens is you just basically stop the virus dead in its tracks, and slowly it becomes eradicated. This takes a long time. I mean, some of the diseases that look like they've literally been driven to extinction by this. Number one example, smallpox.
Smallpox, right.
That was one of the first vaccines that was invented in the early, I believe it was early 20th century, maybe even late 19th. And there hasn't been a documented case of smallpox in about 50 years. So this shit works, but it takes time. And even with things like polio, like one idiot I had a slap around earlier this week, who shall remain nameless, was talking about how, oh, well, look, measles and polio haven't gone away. Yeah, because of idiots like you that refuse to vaccinate their children.
I love the oh my god. I love the results-based arguments where you create a situation and then you use that situation that you created as evidence that you're right in the first place for creating the situation. I just lost contact with my brain. This is literally how it works, though. Am I wrong? How some of these arguments come around?
Right.
We do a thing, it causes a variation in how things have always been, i.e. we see illnesses come back that haven't been around for a while, and then we go, see, they're back because we did something, and that's why we did it.
Now, are
you kidding me?
Well, hold on now. There's a concept called herd immunity, which is a threshold that does not have to be 100%, and it's actually different per vaccine and per virus. that if you have a certain percentage of the population vaccinated, it's usually up in the 90s, but it's not 100%, the virus will not mutate, it will not evolve. And at that point, that keeps the vaccine effective. Whereas, if you are under herd immunity, the virus evolves, and then the vaccine no longer works.
Right.
Because it's no longer for that same virus. It's changed.
Because you have a whole other group of people that aren't
and
that are getting it, and then it's
people,
it has a group of people to mutate around. Yeah, right.
Then people who are vaccinated start getting it because the vaccine is now obsolete.
Right.
Older people.
And so that's the ultimate thing. They set the stage, these anti-vaxxers, and then they turn around and go, see. It's like, no, you idiots. It's like you're demonstrating that you know nothing about how it works.
There's more to it than that. It's more of a macro game. Now, what was I going to say? So this is, for example, why I'm personally not a big believer in flu vaccines. Because not remotely enough people get them for this to work. If you look at like measles, mumps, rubella, those kind of vaccinations, you're still up in the 90s. Actually, if you look at the numbers on this stuff, it's just below herd immunity. It's like 93 versus 92.
Right.
Whereas with flu vaccines, I mean, what percentage of the population gets them?
Well, let's go off on a thing on flu vaccines real fast, because this was used on Bill Maher last night. And if you ever want to see 5 people collectively lose their shit and be reduced to functional retards on a TV show, go watch that Bill Maher. Hands down, like one of the worst Bill Maher episodes ever done. Okay. And they went off and using this flu vaccine. This is the other thing I want to say real quick. All vaccines are not the same, as you just pointed out. The idea of it is not the same. The mutation level is not the same. There are how many kinds of flu? And every year, what the vaccine makers do is they pick the 3 strains they think are going to be big that year, and they make an educated guess. Sometimes they're right on, sometimes they're not. This year, they weren't very right on. It was like a very ineffective vaccine. That happens. That's normal. Look into it. Like everyone, it happened at a time where people are debating this issue afresh with all vaccines, and then they're using it as evidence. And it's like, no, you idiot. That's every year it's that way. And really what those vaccines are for like your high-risk people, your kids, your elderly, people with other respiratory illness where flu could, set them off into some kind of bigger illness. Those are the people that I've never really gotten a flu vaccine, and most times I don't get flu. That's just me, though. Well, but you're right. It isn't meant for everybody necessarily.
Well, the flu also mutates like something out of a Marvel comic.
Oh, it does. It does. And there's several strains going on at the same time, usually, in any given year. Right. That's just the way it is.
And sometimes they cross. Like, they have cross strains and all
you just hope. It's a best guess. So it's like expecting and equating these two things, measles and flu vaccine. It's apples and oranges. It's not the same thing.
It really is. I
mean, it's the same science of creating them, but how and what and the procedure is totally different. It's not a mandatory vaccine for most people, for one. But for two, it's not something you get once in infancy and never again. They're just not the same thing. So people keep crossing these over with the measles and everything else. It's not the same idea. Anyway.
Now, moving on to another fact that I think is very important here to bring up, and this may bridge us into our next discussion if we feel like it. Of course, the person who kind of started the controversy this time was Dr. Rand Paul, the senator from Kentucky.
He piled on. Yes, he did. At a very key time.
He kind of started, there's the measles thing going on, and he said, I guess the exact quote was that people should have the option, basically the vaccine should not be mandatory.
Right.
That people should have the option to make that decision on behalf of their children. There should not be any kind of government mandate that you have to have your kids vaccinated.
Right.
And he said that a lot of people are concerned about supposed side effects like mental illness, like autism. Now, is that bullshit? Are those concerns bullshit? 100%.
Yes.
But he didn't say they weren't bullshit. He said people are concerned. He's right. He's on target about that.
Well, Chris Christie piled on, too, saying it should be a choice, blah, blah, blah. And, well, here's the thing. Here's the quote I heard, too, in addition to that, was he was saying, I have seen many times it caused, mental blah, blah, blah. You know what? There are rare cases, and that should be talked about.
I don't think he said it caused. I think he's seen people, he's seen cases of people, like, having, for example, autism discovered around the same time that you get the MMR vaccine. But guess what? That's when you diagnose autism. It's around the same time.
Right. Well, not only that, there are actual cases of reaction to a vaccine that happen. That's normal, too. That's always been there, though.
But the correlation,
and it's not autism either. It's other disorders. I forget what they're called.
That yes, there is, but like specifically the correlation between MMR and autism is complete bullshit.
It's been disproven multiple times.
It's been disputed, but it's just this thing that won't go away.
Right, it won't die. And fucking, a lot of people always point at Jenny McCarthy, and it just, it stuns me that okay, all right. What I'm about to say is going to be extremely insulting to Jenny McCarthy, and I'm okay with that because she has caused a lot of distress amongst the rest of the sane thinking parts of America, of which I consider myself a member. Because the idea that this big tit having bouncing MTV VJ whose only job was literally just to shake her boobs on TV to have adolescent teenagers tune in. I mean, this is when we were in high school, this woman was on MTV, right? And the idea that she, does all kinds of drugs and booze and fucks God knows who, and has some fucked up kid, and all of a sudden it's medical science's fault. And then she goes on a crusade, writes 3 books, causes this whole movement, and then now she tries to, I didn't create a movement, it was just other people. And this whole, I got my education from the University of Google. Really? Are you fucking kidding me? And, it's like, well, who's stupider, her or these people who hold her up as some kind of, demigod example or expert? It's it's just stunning to me that someone like that gets this much credibility. But I guess in a country that idolizes Dr. Oz, I shouldn't be fucking surprised.
If you're taking medical advice from Jenny McCarthy, please just go kill yourself.
Let's just start there.
Go, please. Just take yourself out of the gene pool.
Circa 1999, that woman's reproductive system was a virtual petri dish, I'm sure, of every band that rolled through that studio around those times.
I mean, when I was a kid, when I was in high school, I had a Jenny McCarthy poster on my wall. It did it for me. You're 16. Women with big tits, it's impressive.
I don't ordinarily slut shame, but this woman had it coming. I'm sorry.
I wasn't taking medical advice from her.
Right. You don't look at her and go, where should I go for this infection? Well, maybe she knows about that.
It's okay to stare at her boobs. That's fine. Really, it's okay, gentlemen. It's fine. It's okay to admit you did it, men my age. Yeah, I'm sure, okay? But if you're taking medical advice from her...
If your wife comes home holding one of her books, please throw it in the trash.
No, throw it in the fireplace. Burn it. It's just, again, now, the other guy that started, this is actually interesting. Now, to her, that's the thing, I don't think
she was basing on this doctor. I know you're going to talk about this doctor, right?
I think,
forget his name.
For her, this was a publicity stunt. She was becoming obsolete. But people weren't staring at her boobs anymore.
Right.
Britney Spears showed up. There's younger women with boobs.
Once they started to sag,
When your career is based on your boobs, it's bound to happen. So now we have Miley Cyrus and kids that are watching us are going to remember.
There's always younger boobs to look at. That's a lesson of life.
Boobs to look at. The boobs develop. All those girls right now that are 10 years old that don't have boobs in 10 years. Only women that are 20 now, that their boobs are going to beat yours. I'm sorry, but it's reality. I'm speaking from manhood here.
Yes.
So this was a publicity stunt. This was a way for her to remain famous. And who she paired up with was this psychopath, and I mean that for the scientific meaning of that term, named Dr. Andrew Wakefield. He's actually a British physician.
Yes.
And he basically did a very tainted study to prove, quote unquote, that MMR was correlated with autism. And at the same time, he himself, in a lab that he was working at for a private company, was trying to patent separate vaccines for measles, mumps, and rubella, which is what MMR stands for.
Right.
So, you see, there's no conflict of interest there.
No. And by the way, he's been stripped of his medical license. He's not a doctor anymore.
In Britain, yeah. And now he works for some Christian medicine.
There's a surprise.
Right, like the Church of Jesus Christ.
Is it Christian Scientist? I knew it. I knew it. Gee, where would a stripped doctor full of hokum, where would he go in this world? Gee, I wonder.
So for folks that believe this shit, let's sum it up. You're taking medical advice from a burned out former MTV icon with fake tits.
Yes.
And a so-called MD who's been stripped of his medical license and now works for the Church of Jesus Christ Scientist. Yeah. Brilliant.
The will pray you better people. The ones who have to get court orders to
Yes.
give their kids chemotherapy drugs when they're dying of cancer. Curable cancer.
Yeah. Brilliant. Yeah. Now, all that being said, what I really want to point out, what I want to get out there is that Rand Paul does not agree with these people. He purposely, he pointed out on that. I vaccinated all my children. I get vaccines when I travel to places, vaccine boosters when I travel to places where there's a risk of contracting one of these communicable diseases. So he's not anti-vaccine. All he's saying is the people that you're talking about, like the Christian scientists, psycho as they are, they have a right to not vaccinate their kids if they don't want to. And I feel like that should be the topic of debate. Now, there's all the difference in the world between saying vaccines don't work and just throwing it out, oh, fuck vaccines, and that, and saying politically that vaccines should not be mandatory. And I feel like these two things are being minced together, and basically, and these idiots that are screaming, that like reading alternate and natural news, they don't help. They're causing this problem. They're giving people who are in favor of vaccines and in favor of mandatory vaccination an easy effigy, and basically marginalizing anyone that thinks like Rand Paul with anyone that thinks like Jenny McCarthy.
Well, I would say, what's the alternative? How can you have that kind of, we were saying, the kind of mass immunity unless you basically require it? I'm trying to figure out how else you do that.
This is where, this is the debate you and I always have, Joe. I think it's an interesting debate. I'm going to flip that around on you and say, how is mandating vaccines going to guarantee herd immunity?
It's been working for 90 years until these morons came along.
Not. That's the thing, though. It has not. First of all, it's not like these morons coming along got rid of the requirements. The requirements are still there. The laws haven't changed. These idiots haven't changed the laws. They've changed public perception. They haven't changed the laws. Secondly, it's not like it was working before. Actually, if you look at the numbers for some of these vaccines, particularly MMR, we've always been just under herd immunity. But now, because of this change in perception, more people are opting out, which is putting us really dangerously below herd immunity. And of course, the answer from Washington and from anyone that believes in government goes, okay, let's just mandate it, because that's going to solve the problem. Vaccines are not mandatory now. We should make this very clear. I'm not sure about the case in other countries, but in the U.S. and in Britain, the two places that I've done research on, this is not mandatory. It's something you can opt out of rather than opt into. So your children, when they're born in a hospital or whatever, or they're going through their regular visits with their physician, they will be vaccinated unless you tell the physician not to, as opposed to you have to ask for the vaccines. That's how this works. And that's not even counting all the millions of children here that never see a doctor, which is not just the poor uninsured, but also myriads of undocumented.
That does depend on the state, though. There are different exemptions and whatnot. And I think when they say exemptions, what they're talking about is a lot of mostly schools require you to be vaccinated to be enrolled. That's where, wasn't that where you were getting at?
Again, they may require you to be vaccinated to be enrolled. That's one type of requirement. But mostly, at least in my experience, I know I haven't done the research on all 50 states, but more liberal states like California and New York, I can tell you for sure, that you can basically check a box that says it's against my personal beliefs to vaccinate my children, and then if the requirement is waived. Because no one's going to fuck with that. No school is going to go to someone that's extremely religious and goes to some, little cult church that's off on the other side of town, right? And they haven't vaccinated their 7 kids because they don't use contraceptives, right? And come in and say, it's against my religion to vaccinate my children, but I still want them enrolled in public school. Are you going to be the principal that says, no, I'm not taking your kids? Are you really going to do that, Joe?
Probably, but...
You would, but can you imagine the shitstorm?
Yeah, but I thought a lot of those people wouldn't have wanted to be in public school anyhow. But, so what can we do, I guess would be my question.
There certainly are a lot of people who opt out that also opt out of public education. But what I'm saying is we're not worried about them because obviously the public school requirement isn't going to get them anyway. But there are people who opt out for religious reasons but still put their children in public school. Obviously, I mean, they do exist. I don't have numbers, but they do exist. See, the thing is, this is a mathematical thing. This is, like I said, it's a macro issue. You're always going to have people that are not vaccinated. I guess my argument to the other side of this, to just the statist ass clowns with their ideology that the government can make everything perfect, is that you're always going to have people that are not vaccinated. You're never going to have 100% herd immunity. It's not going to happen. It's never happened anywhere, and we've done just fine without it. Just we've never been at 100%. There's always people who slip through the cracks. That's just reality. What it comes down to is our requirements, our legal mandates, are strictening, making legal mandates stricter. Is that going to increase the number of people that are vaccinated? Is that really going to be effective at putting us above that threshold of herd immunity? In other words, are we better off that way?
I think probably what I would do is come up with some kind of nouveau solution and basically fund the most clandestine social media experiment to like set a backfire to this stupidity where you put out a lot of like you kind of surreptitiously enlist a bunch of like noted experts that aren't usually known to be on the teat of government and have them kind of go out and do a lot of press about how good vaccines are and stuff like that, and hope the idiot quotient just goes down. You call the casual idiots, and get them in there, and then the like you said, the hardcore idiots are always going to be out there refusing to do it. But
Joe, I heard Mr. Putin is hiring propaganda experts. If you're looking at
I don't know how else you get around it, because it's like anything you do in public, these idiots just go, see, they want you to get a vaccine. So, why do they want you? What do they know that you don't? They know medical science. That's what they know.
Like I said, I'm 100% in favor of vaccines and vaccine children, but I'm very, very wary and skeptical.
Like you said, the ability of it to enforce. How are you going to enforce? Go door to door? I don't know.
One, but I am also very skeptical of allowing the government to mandate a medical procedure, because this sets a colossal precedent.
Yeah, I'm fuzzy about that too, honestly.
I'm 100% in favor of vaccines, don't get me wrong. But, there's some historical examples
I know.
being able to mandate medical tests. And we're not talking about Nazi Germany here.
No, we're not.
Right here in the United States.
Which a lot of those guys, by the way, that were running tests on Jewish children and whatnot and starving them and fucking with them and stuff against their will, we took a lot of those guys into our medical field. So you're right. The science is not pure as the driven snow, let's say, morally on this issue in the past. No. No.
It's not even...
But,
It's not... Like I said, you don't have to go to the extreme of Nazi Germany.
The Tuskegee experiment. Let's look at that.
Yes.
That's one.
But, you even had, for decades in this country, we essentially invented the concentration camp, where we took people with low IQs, people who were basically not even necessarily mentally retarded, although them too, but people what we call right now borderline cognitive functioning, which is right there, kind of the Forrest Gumps of the world.
Mm-hmm.
And we basically herded them into concentration camps, castrated them, or in other ways sterilized them, and kept them from reproducing.
I heard about that,
here in the United States for about 50 years. This is not Nazi Germany we're talking about now.
Well, and not to mention anything to do with mental health type science was like in the Stone Age until the 70s. So,
right. Oh, and of course, this was highly, highly racially motivated. I should
put
that out there. And motivated by xenophobia, because a lot of these IQ tests were very culturally biased.
Yes.
So most of the people that ended up in these camps, by the way, they were called morons. That's where the word term.
That's where the word, comes
originated. Yeah, Google it. So a lot of them were either former slaves or descendants of slaves, so second generation.
Who were never really educated.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly.
Yes, they weren't educated. They didn't know how to behave.
They didn't know how to read. A lot of them. Yeah.
Behave. Really? If you grew up in a
imagine that, right?
Arena,
never given books, never sent to school.
And you also behave like someone that grew up on a plantation in Alabama, and not like someone that grew up in Boston. I'm shocked. I never.
I can't believe the erudite don't come out of the plantations in Alabama. I just can't believe that.
And then the same thing. A lot of it happened with Eastern European immigrants for the same reason. They couldn't read English, right? And a lot of them were illiterate.
Well,
at the same time, so. A lot of this has very, very dangerous potential. And again, I don't want to come off sounding like someone,
I just want to save lives. That's all I'm saying.
Slippery slope, right? Like the slippery slope. If you let the government do that, if you make school uniforms mandatory in 5 years, we'll all be in FEMA death camps. Well, No, you don't have to go to that extreme. If you look at the
No.
history,
You're right. It's dicey. Well, you talked about high-functioning, cognitive impaired people and borderline retarded people. Let's move on to the Republican presidential field. Um,
Yeah, we let them out.
yes, I did just say that. Send me your hate mail. Go for it. Bring it on. Well, specifically, I wanted to mention Sarah Palin.
Wait, is she's not in the field? Are you kidding me?
She's in that period
Fine,
that,
hold on,
that
hold on.
Mitt Romney was in for about 2 weeks. Remember when he made that announcement of, I'm thinking maybe, and then everyone's like, oh my God, he's running, oh my God, he's running, and then 2 weeks later he goes, yeah, I'm not. Because...
That for him right there, I'm thinking that was a groundbreaking.
Right. Well, to be fair, that's all Jeb has said to this point. I'm thinking and looking.
I thought Jeb made an official announcement.
But didn't you hear about this big hoedown in Iowa where all the like kind of maybe kindas showed up, most of them? Like Huckabee was there and Trump was there, but Palin was there and they all spoke.
Okay.
And Palin literally made a speech that I can't hear without my brain starting to shut parts of itself down.
You're going to end up in one of those camps, right?
Seriously, like if I listen to what's hilarious, and this is kind of like it makes you wonder. Okay, who's still a Palin fan at this point? It's kind of like who are that 30% that still support Obama anymore?
No. It's the same people that worship
who were like, oh, she's great.
The same reason.
Well, could you tell her teleprompter failed halfway through the speech? Yes, I could, because she literally had about 2-3 minute part of that speech where it was a giant 3-minute long run-on sentence that literally made no literal sense. It didn't.
She sounded like Sarah Palin.
Right, and it's just like, is this what people think she's smart? I've heard people tell me that, oh, she's so smart. Are you fucking kidding me? This woman is a jabbering lunatic. And it's like, the tapes that came out of the fracas in Alaska, she's white trash. This is like electing Britney Spears president. I mean, seriously.
Well, like I said, it's the same people who worship Jenny McCarthy.
Stupefying.
And for the same reason.
And it's like, oh, she's just like us. It's like, yeah, I don't want to necessarily elect people just like me, okay? Let's be honest. And I'm not like what I would call low IQ, but you can tell me anyway. But I don't know what's so great about that idea, but I don't know. It's I don't want to even try to paraphrase her speech because I can't. Just go look it up, people. Please believe me. It's the most hilarious or stupid thing you'll ever hear.
Please don't bring down the intelligence of the show.
Oh my God.
And here's the thing. I feel like we have to establish what constitutes a candidate at this point. Because let's be fair, this time of year, this time in the electoral cycle, and every year it gets a little bit earlier, pretty soon it'll be right after the presidential election the last time, but whatever. This is the time when all the circus clowns come out, okay? Case in point, Donald Trump. People, let me say this right now.
He's never running.
If you prove me wrong, you can have my house. Donald Trump is never running for president.
Never.
It's not happening.
You know why it's never happening? Because he's never going to turn over his books to be looked at. Never. You have to turn over your financial documents. You won't ever do it.
Now,
you have to open your books. Yeah.
Further, I can't stand Donald Trump, so I will take this opportunity to rag on him on the show. Thank you.
He deserves it.
Okay, now, second, Donald Trump. The other thing I can't stand hearing about Donald Trump is that he's a successful businessman.
No, he's not.
Because he's not.
No.
Okay, Donald Trump is probably the only person in history to build a hotel in Vegas and be unable to secure a gambling license.
Right.
Think about that. Who
this big golden building with his fucking name on it. Right. Yes.
It's like not being able to get laid in a whorehouse.
Right.
I mean,
so going to the Trump, believe us, there's no casino there. I've been there. There's no casino in it.
No, it's gone. It's gone. They sold it. It's done. He sold it off because he couldn't secure a gambling.
This is the same guy whose Atlantic City casino went bankrupt 3 times. 3 times. Not once. Not twice. 3 times. A casino. I mean, yeah.
Okay, in Atlantic City. It's like that. What's the 4 horsemen of apocalypse? Pestilence, right?
Yeah.
Everything they touch just wilts and dies.
Well, ask
That's
yourself,
what this guy is.
What billionaire has to sell his image and likeness to some you can make money to seminar to a bunch of hicks in Orlando, for fuck's sake? Okay, I mean, come on.
This guy is to business people or to entrepreneurs what Dr. Phil is to psychology.
Right.
He is no fucking.
Or what Dr. Oz is to medicine. Yeah.
Yeah. It's just, but that's kind of the problem with this country is we get a popularized version of everything,
right,
to the point that people that have no clue think they're experts because they watch Dr. Phil or Dr. Oz.
It's literally a cult of personality type thing. They have constructed this image of themselves as this all-knowing figure in this one field, and it's all marketing. That's all it is. There's nothing there. There isn't.
But there's another place we have to go with this, and that's the fact that the presidential elections, sadly, have turned into another avenue for these assholes to make a name for themselves.
Right.
I mean, Donald Trump, the only reason he claims to be running for president is to keep his celebrity image alive. Same thing with Sarah Palin. I have zero faith. I can't make the same kind of vouching argument, but I have zero faith that woman's actually going to run for president. The only reason she ran with John McCain, everyone knew John McCain was going to lose. That's why no one wanted to run with him.
Right.
No one wants to play.
Ask yourself why he had to pick her. Yeah, exactly.
Right, and it's nothing personal against John McCain. They're just like, John, we're young. We still want to run at some point. We can't run with you. You're going to lose. You're going to have your ass handed to you. Not because you're necessarily such a terrible candidate, although he was, but that's a different story.
Yeah.
But because you're running on George Bush's legacy, George Bush Jr., and then we're going to be tied to your ticket. This is why he chose this no-name, half-term, accidental Alaska governor.
If we look at his candidacy in historical context, he was Bob Dole, really. He just had been around long enough, he was just sort of our emeritus leader at the time, and he got screwed in the last campaign, so okay, fine. We'll just let him run. That's really kind of what happened.
Right, and then Sarah Palin basically used this to get to Hollywood.
Right. She started her own TV channel. She's written books. Right. She's been on Fox News as a paid contributor. She's made millions off of that.
Right. She's
totally
your typical Hollywood big tit celebrity.
Yes.
Dumber than a box of rocks, like all of them, like the Kardashians, like Paris Hilton, like Britney Spears, like Jenny McCarthy. She's different. Now, the difference is she's conservative, because most of these celebrities tend to lean to the left. Kind of the conservative media have figured out, hey, if we want to compete with that, we have to have the TNA appeal. This is why, a lot of libertarian shows
and what's funny,
TNA reporters.
What's funny is watching her speak, now she's got lines in her face. She's not even like the hot MILF candidate anymore. Like, now she's just some old woman.
What do we say about tits droop?
Yeah.
You do
we're being pigs on this show, by the way. I'll just say to the women out there, I'll allow that we're being pigs.
I'm being realistic, because this is what people are looking at. I'm sorry.
But you know what? I'm sorry. You know what? She's trading on that. And don't tell me that she's not. Give me a break.
Yes, that's exactly what I'm saying.
When you're trading on that, you can't expect me to not criticize it.
Right. I'm not trying to be a pig. I'm trying to say this doesn't work.
Right.
You can't run on this because it has a very short expiration.
You don't elect Britney Spears president. You don't elect Miley Cyrus president. You don't. You don't. Right. Exactly. It's not what guys look at you for.
No. Hold on. So, that's another one that I feel like is not going to run. She's only doing it to maintain her image because it's starting to fade. And God only knows how many more there are. I mean, did you know that in 2012, the naked cowboy ran for president?
I did not.
Look it up. It's real. I think he was on a Democrat ticket.
Well, Colbert ran in one state, I think, too.
Small.
But
Colbert was more of a joke.
In North Carolina.
This was for real.
But so let's talk about Huckabee for a second.
Do we have to?
He was on Daily Show recently being interviewed about his book. And when they introduced the book and showed the title and the cover, I thought they were making a joke. Because the title, and I'm not making this up, go look it up, is called God, Guns, Grits, and Gravy. That's the title of the book. I'm not fucking kidding you. That's the title. Wow. Wow. And his whole idea, and he started talking about this on the Daily Show, it's literally like he's just trying to reduce everything down to these easily digestible bits. And he literally thinks that he's just going to spoon feed this to his base. Rural people who are religious, no offense. That's what he's trying to reach with this. But his whole thing of, Bubbaville and the bubbles, like New York and California. And not to mention the fact that when he was saying all this on TV, it sounded like he was saying the same word. So it was hard to tell what he was saying at first. The bubble, the bubble, the bubble, the bubble, the bubble, the bubble. It's like, what the fuck are you talking about?
Here's the thing.
Wow.
Mike Huckabee is a politician that I've kind of flipped in and out of I wouldn't say liking, but respecting over the years. And it's interesting because even though he himself is very conservative, like ridiculously conservative, like deny science, deny reality in favor of the Bible conservative
Totally.
in his personal views. But when you look at his politics, I mean, the man was Arkansas governor. You know, he's been in politics for a long time. He's actually not that. He's not that ultra conservative in his political approach. He understands that this is not something that's going to sell.
He's not Ted Cruz. He's not Ted Cruz.
You know, I honestly feel like Ted Cruz isn't that bad for the same reason. Yes, he's insane in his personal views. That's allowed. Most politicians are. This isn't limited to the far right.
But I'm saying that Ted Cruz would just simply refuse to compromise on anything and just stop everything in its tracks. Whereas Huckabee would kind of look for a middle ground.
Well,
in a political disagreement, let's say.
Right, but they're from very different times politically too. Ted Cruz is a lot younger than Huckabee.
Which is why I think Huckabee doesn't stand a chance.
Now, so when you mention this book, and I agree with you with the ridiculousness of what you're talking about, but it makes me wonder if he genuinely expects to run on this ticket, or if he's just doing that to rile up, like you said, a very far-right base, which is his base. And honestly, if we're going to go that route, if we're going to have this stalwart conservative candidate from that side of the Tea Party, I would take Huckabee any day over any of the idiots that represented that side in 2012. Santorum, Palin, who's the guy? Who was the guy from Mississippi?
Oh,
Haley Barbour.
I can't remember his name right now. The governor. He was the governor, right?
Barbour.
Haley Barbour. Yes.
Well, Michelle Bachmann's another one. I mean, these guys, it's like, Santorum, the guy who brought home a dead fetus?
Right.
I mean, there's insanity. Huckabee is not insane. He's entitled to his views. Insanity is not your views. It's whether or not you understand that the rest of the world does not share your views. And Santorum has no concept of that whatsoever.
Well, here's the problem. Here's the thing, though, with that to that point is a lot of the point he was trying to make is, y'all in the city think you just know everything, and really it's us in the country with our homespun wisdom that kind of know everything, and you guys just don't understand.
Yeah, we know vaccines don't work, for example.
Right. And it's like, okay, wait a minute here, moron. Let's fucking wind that back just a second here. It's literally just countering smugness with smugness. And it may appeal to a certain conglomerate of people, let's say. It ain't going to get you elected, all right? I got news for you. Cities have numbers of voters that still outnumber people in rural areas for a fucking reason. I mean, that's why cities tend to elect people, don't they? I mean,
yeah, but
you have to carry all of the rural areas in the whole country, maybe, and even then, it's by definition.
That's not going to work. He's not trying to appeal to those voters at this point. He's trying to rile up his very conservative rural base so he can stand a chance in the primary. See, at least Huckabee is a serious candidate. He may be kind of a loon, but at least he's a serious candidate. I'm far more concerned with the Donald Trumps and the Sarah Palins than I am with him.
Well, he did say, he has been saying some stupid shit, though. He said something stupid about gays, how it's kind of like cussing or drinking too much on CNN, and then at the...
Being gay is like cussing or drinking too much?
Oh, I have people that drink too much, and I have people who are gay. Well, it's their lifestyle What? Okay. See, this is the problem. And in Iowa... In Iowa, he compared lawmaking to sausage making and said, yeah, no one wants to do any pig killing, they have the sausage. Well, I think we should do some pig killing. He's just, the point I saw was that it's, I forget what show it was, I was watching, is they were kind of recounting all these people who have run before, and how all of them just don't seem like they have the juice anymore. They're just putting their foot in their mouth every time they open it. And it's, you look at him and he's lost that mojo. Because if you remember when he ran in 2008, he kind of had some mojo to him. And didn't he come with a pretty sizable demographic, chunk of people?
He was up there.
He was like a third place finisher, but still, that's not, that's not nothing.
He was tied for Ron Paul, but he was up there with Romney.
He had a base.
And then there was the two of them. Yeah, there was the only other two candidates that even placed. Yeah.
But it's like, he lost that mojo, and it's almost like he spent too much time working at Fox News in a nice cushy job like that. He just doesn't have that it anymore,
Speaking speaking of Fox News, it's changing the subject a little bit. And this is another thing. This is not something you think you're going to hear me complain about, but I'm just so sick of it that I'm like literally ready to start stabbing people in the face for this. There's another one of the things where I need that e-paintball gun. Like, shut up, you're stupid. Bang. Okay, now, I am seeing this. Now, I'm not a fan of Obama. I've criticized Obama on this show more than I even care to admit. But it's like every day now I log into social media and I look at, just regular media and I look at things people are saying. And it's like the man can do no right.
Oh, no, totally.
Have this, and it's not even so much the
have you been asleep for the last 4 years? Like,
it's this base. No, but it feels like it's getting worse to me. It feels like,
well, they've run out of things to criticize him for.
All the legitimate policy criticism is gone. I mean,
and there's lots of that still, by the way.
There's no shortage of that to go around, but these people are too fucking stupid to understand it.
It's to the point now where if he came out and said, I really enjoy pleasant sunny days, there'd be an entire day's worth of conservative radio hosts going, oh, who's Obama to say that we can't have a rainy day once in a while? Like, who's this guy to say we can't have a storm or snow? Or, well, what's wrong with snow, Obama? Don't you want to ski? I thought you were rich and you ski. It's just so ridiculous now.
He's calling for a drought. And there's going to be a drought that's going to kill all the corn. And we're going to be dependent on imports from other countries.
You're right. I thought about that one. I forgot about that angle. Right. He doesn't want it to rain. We need rain in the South. Yeah.
Right.
Wow.
Right. Just
oh my God.
Anything the guy does, anything the guy says now, it's like, okay, my favorite thing recently was when Michelle went to Saudi Arabia and she didn't wear a headscarf, hijab, and a burqa.
Right.
Okay. First of all, people here. I want you to listen to me now. Okay. I'm very serious now. That's not required. It's required of the women who live in that country.
Right.
It's not required of foreign diplomats, which is what she is if she's traveling there. And I swear to you, okay, think about this. All the Fox News types, and again, I'm not talking about necessarily just anchors, but about people. Someone said, oh, look, she disrespected the monarchy of Saudi Arabia, and she didn't cover up, and, she's misrepresenting the U.S. and being rebellious. Now, can you imagine if there was a picture of her in a fucking hijab and a burqa?
Wait, these were the same people bitching about him bowing before?
Wait, hold on. Can you imagine
I know.
their reaction if our First Lady showed up on camera in a hijab and a burqa?
Obama might as well have rolled out a prayer rug at that point and kneeled toward frickin' Mecca. Yeah.
You can't win.
No.
It's just, they start out with the idea, Obama, bad.
Right. No. That's been going on for a while now. I'm not saying it hasn't been going on. It goes to insane lengths, so it does, yeah.
We've gotten to a point where that's all we talk about with Obama.
Right.
And it enables Obama. Now, Obama can't do anything. He's completely a lame duck president.
Yeah.
Both houses of Congress are controlled by Republicans. The Supreme Court is gearing up to throw out half the shit. He's finished regardless politically, and that's a good thing because I don't like Obama. I don't like his policies. But this actually enables him because now he's got nothing to lose. Not only is he in his final 2 years, but he's got it's like no matter what he does, these idiots are going to pick on him.
If I was him, I would just start trolling them.
Oh, but he does. I mean, remember what he said during the State of the Union?
That was actually a really good ice burn. Even if I don't support the man, that was a great ice burn. I am beholden to comedy at all times, and if there's a good joke to be had, I don't care who it's against or who's saying it. If you can get a good joke in, get a good joke in. That was awesome. Right, that's the only thing of the State of the Union worth mentioning, by the way.
Oh, yeah, absolutely, which is really sad in its own right. But again, you see, I didn't watch most of the State of the Union this time around simply because there was nothing there. The only interesting bit was that. It's sad.
Them applauding the fact that he can't run again. It's, you're right. And I will say this. There's a point of classlessness that was crossed with this president that was not crossed with other presidents. Democrats did not act like that with Bush. They didn't. I'm sorry. Stop. Save me your fucking hate mail. It didn't happen. Show me proof if you want to send me hate mail, all right? I don't remember anyone screaming liar at Bush, even after he goes to Iraq and there's no fucking WMDs. 3 years later, nobody was yelling liar at him during his war on terror bloviations in the State of the Union. It didn't happen. So don't fucking start with me.
Where I'm going to disagree with you, Joe, I agree with what you're saying. Where I'm going to disagree with you is that they should have.
And that's what I'm saying.
So And therefore, Republicans, I think the guy that screamed "You lie," I respect that guy. I applaud him. At least he's calling him out,
It was
rightfully,
childish.
on
It was
policy
childish.
lies, but he's calling him out on policy lies, not applauding the fact that he can't run again.
Well, so if you're asking me to compare the two in childishness level, yeah, right. Applauding was more childish, yes.
Now, here's another, just not to leave the Democrats without guilt here. One of the reasons Democrats didn't call out Bush on lying about WMD was because 2/3 of them
Voted for the war. I know. Oh, I know.
Oh,
I know.
wait, let's remember that.
Yeah,
Okay?
I remember.
And that brings us, now, when we look at one side, we have to look at the other, okay? And if you look at the liberals in this country at this point, if you look at the left and their media and their appearances in social media, they really aren't doing anything better than what the conservatives are doing. What they're coming up with is basically two things. One is Obama apologism, which is, it's like the level of stupid.
It's pathetic. It's pathetic.
It competes with that Obama bad thing. It's like, oh, look, Obama is the greatest president ever.
Yeah. I think my most favorite and my most favorite meaning, I wanted to burn this when it came. Okay, I'm a subscriber to Rolling Stone. I got it for free once, and it just kept renewing. Anyhow,
I'm sorry.
There was an issue that showed up in my mailbox that I literally wanted to set on fire the minute I saw it, and it was a cover of Obama, and it said "In Defense of Obama" by Paul Krugman. Are you fucking kidding me? Wow. And I did slog through it. It's pathetic. It's pathetic.
Just so I can get on record saying this, Paul Krugman is to economics what Dr. Phil is to psychology, Donald Trump to business, and so forth.
But I bet people tell me, like, what a smart guy he is, it's like, reading that article? Like, are you kidding me? Is he on drugs? Like, where has he been the last 5 years?
He'd be smarter if he were on drugs. Here's the thing, and this goes to basically neo-Keynesianism in a nutshell. It's the measures you're looking at. Okay, number one thing, the stock market. Yes, the stock market is at record highs, and you would think that liberals, who are supposed to advocate for the poor and minorities and the disenfranchised and underprivileged, look at this economy, look at the joblessness and the shitty paying jobs that we've been creating. Okay, let's say we believe the bullshit, although I don't, that the unemployment has actually dropped and that there's actually more jobs, although the numbers don't actually support that. But for a second, let's say we're creating shit jobs in the service industry. So the divide between the rich and the poor is just growing. It's almost the highest it's ever been. It's down to the 1910s, and if this keeps up, we're going to be back in the Gilded Age pretty soon here, folks.
So one thing I would say is that I don't know that I know enough about it to blame it all on him, and I don't think you ever can blame it all on him. But yeah, the divide is widened under his watch. Yes.
No. I'm not saying I'm blaming that on him. All the difference in the world between blaming that on him and giving him credit for having fixed it when it's actually going in the opposite direction. So you would think that liberals look at this, that you have this massive disparity. Meanwhile, the stock market is at record highs. And you say, there is something seriously wrong with this picture, where we have economic policies that enable the rich to keep their money and their wealth while we're still in the middle of this economic crisis and everyone else is paying for it. You would think that the left would have a problem with that.
Elizabeth Warren has a problem with that.
Good, because she's smart. I don't necessarily agree with her solutions, but she's smart. Bernie Sanders, too.
Right, correct. I keep forgetting to mention him, yes.
Right. These Obama zombies coming out and screaming, oh, look, Obama's the best president ever because the stock market is... Just shut up!
And these guys, they're just as bad as your average neocon Republican because they're in the same pockets, a lot of them. It's the same country club mentality. They're on the same team, ultimately, and that's of the money to lead. Period.
Right.
Period.
And, I mean... realistically speaking, a lot of these economic measures are obsolete. They're obsolete because they're economic measures that were agreed upon as useful and valuable as far back as the 1930s or the 1950s. And back then, they were very valuable, and they were very workable. Now, they really are no longer reflective of economic success. And, I mean, particularly, you have to realize that in 70 years, in 80 years, something like the Dow Jones Index, or the NASDAQ, or the S&P, those are for-profit corporations. And they're going to adjust what's in their indices, what stocks they're using, to what's actually going to grow. So if you have all this government stimulus, if you look at what's actually in those indices, it's completely different from what was in there 10 years ago.
Well, and not only that, but just, we're to the point now where you used to just invest in a stock. You bought a stock to give a company money. Now there's so many things that are traded that it's vaporware. It's not based on anything like concrete anymore. It's all packaged, 8 million ways from Sunday. You're buying a piece of a mortgage, of a piece of security, of this, that, and the other. Who even knows? So it's like,
I remember the last time.
It used to be a pretty cut and dry thing. If it was going up, it meant specific companies were all making money. Now it's just like, okay, the math wizards have literally created this entire thing. It's just like walking into a casino now, almost, in a lot of ways, how it works.
I remember the last time we had a bunch of swaps and chopped up mortgages that were sold through multiple hands.
They haven't stopped doing that, by the way.
No. I remember the last time, like 1920s.
Oh, well, yeah.
It didn't end so well.
No. Anyway. It's to the point where, in other words, it's not, it used to be a direct reflector of the economy, and it hasn't been in a while, and people haven't caught up to that fact.
And what I'm going to say to that is, I don't necessarily think what you're describing is a bad thing. This is normal. It's economic evolution. Things change. But what it does do, like you just accurately said, it makes the old measurements obsolete. Another measurement that
you could say, oh, well, the stock market's high, so everything's great. No, not necessarily.
No, you can't, right? And even like things like job growth and GDP growth that used to be very, very reliable. And now, they're not completely unreliable, but they're not what they used to be. Labor force participation is a huge deal now because we have retiring baby boomers. So, of course, if unemployment's low, then, low unemployment in the 60s, man, everything was great. And now it doesn't, because you have all these people that could still work, but they're retiring because the wages are shit, and there's no point in them working, which means you have less labor force participation and less productivity. So there's nothing wrong with that, but you have to account for that in your measures.
Right.
My favorite measure as a social worker to bash on is the poverty line, because the poverty line was developed by a social worker. It's the measure that was developed in 1957, and it was developed based on the price of food. She went around to a bunch of grocery stores and markets and basically places that sold food in 1957, and she put together a statistical chart of how much food costs, and basically said you're under the poverty line if you can't afford this basic food basket without some sort of government handout, which there was a lot less of at the time. Well, that worked great in 1957. But food prices have plummeted since then, and your number one expense for any American household now is housing.
Right.
And the poverty line does not even take account of housing at all, ever. It's still based on food.
Which it's like, what, 1/3 of your average person's income, right?
Right. So how is that measure worth two shits?
I remember hearing what the poverty line was once and going, seriously? That low? Who could fucking survive at all on that? Yeah, exactly.
Well, you can afford food. Just fine.
Yeah, if I'm homeless, I can walk into a store and buy food. I don't know where I'd take it once I buy it.
You don't even need to buy it. Your homeless people don't usually pay for their food. There's places that'll feed them for free.
That's true.
Now, you'll freeze to death at night under the bridge, but you'll be well fed.
Yeah. Wow.
So this is the kind of thing about it. So one thing we really can't get away from talking about before we wrap up here, and I think I'm glad we saved this gentleman for last. Mr. Brian Williams.
Oh boy. Yeah. I think what happened to Brian Williams, and obviously it was his little Iraq story of being shot down in a helicopter, and then another thing came out where, wait a minute, didn't you say you saw bodies floating by your French Quarter hotel room during Hurricane Katrina? There weren't floods in the French Quarter during Hurricane Katrina. How exactly did you see bodies float by? And, I got dysentery from drinking flood water. Okay, there weren't reports of dysentery in the whole city. So you were like patient zero for that? Like there were reports of dogs drinking the flood water that were fine. So wait a minute here, dude. So I think what he got busted on is a thing that probably it's like football where, my favorite team, the Saints, they got busted for having like little unofficial bounties for players getting big hits against opponents. It's a thing that is done everywhere, like the Patriots now with these deflated balls that just happened before the Super Bowl. It's a thing at every team. Every team is always trying to like get an edge or cut a corner or kind of, steal a play or something. There's always like some kind of chicanery going on, it seems like, in life. Look at steroids in baseball. It almost seems like these reporters, of course they're going to bullshit, but he got caught. What's worse is getting caught bullshitting.
When these guys go down, they go down fast.
Look at what happened to Dan Rather, yeah.
You're right.
That was quick.
It sounds to me like this is my explanation for his Katrina report. You ready? See, he wasn't satisfied with the accommodations in the city of New Orleans. I mean, everything's going to shit, right? So he wondered. He drove into the swamps one night, and he went into this voodoo lounge, right? And they were smoking these plants that he'd never seen before. Okay, so they passed him a little bit. They said, "Here, this will help you report on the floods and the hurricane in a more colorful light."
Right.
And he woke up in his hotel room the next morning. His ass hurt terribly, but he didn't mention that. And then all of a sudden he started seeing zombies and bodies floating by and dysentery. I mean,
he didn't mention the walls were melting at the same time, I guess.
They're already melted when he woke up. I mean, it's like, was it like, wait, am I in Hiroshima or am I in New Orleans?
Yeah, it's like, when you get caught bullshitting, it's bad for these guys. Real bad.
Right. So, but here's my concern with it. I agree with you completely, and I agree with you that Brian Williams probably isn't an exception in this case, although I loathe NBC because their specific brand of reporting, yes, they lie like everybody, but they sensationalize. Just like you have Fox News is notorious for fear-mongering. Oh, the evil terrorists are going to come and get us.
Sensationalizing is not limited to NBC. Have you watched CNN for 5 minutes?
No, I like.
They were the ones that they had blizzard mobiles in the New York blizzard a couple weeks back, which they didn't even get. They didn't even hit them that hard.
Well, I love the Jon Stewart, the Daily Show. He did like the impression when they're talking about Ebola, when all the medical scientists and the CDC are giving their speeches on Ebola, talking about how it's really not that big a deal. You probably won't get Ebola, and all the news are like playing this like suspense. Dun, 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 dun,
right. Like, any minute now, he's going to say you're all going to die. Any minute now. We're just going to play the music now. Yeah.
Right, exactly. It's like they're saying nothing's going to happen. Everything's fine. It's okay. Unless you travel to Africa or you live with someone that's an Ebola patient, probably not going to get it. Right. So it's like that. You want to hear an Ebola joke?
Okay.
You probably won't get it.
Wow.
Okay, but it's the same thing here, right? So no, I realize that it's not limited to NBC, but I feel like NBC, this is kind of their trademark, is to sensationalize the crap out of everything. I mean, I'll never forget Rachel Maddow when she was interviewing Rand Paul, and honestly, this vaccine thing really reminded me of that because they just try so hard to play up. Oh, look, he's anti-vaccine, but he's not. And it's the same thing they do. They love to sensationalize everything. Now, obviously, they have a different slant and they have a different political agenda, but it's almost Putin-esque because Putin and the Russian media, they don't fearmonger. They sensationalize. That's what they do. So, and people swallow this up. Like if you look at Fox News, okay, Fox News has that reputation, and people tend to either love them or hate them. There's very few people that take Fox News literally. They're neutral. But when it comes to NBC, you have the haters. But people who like NBC aren't necessarily crazy liberals.
Well, is MSNBC and NBC the same? I wonder.
I'm pretty sure.
I don't know if you can equate them. Aren't they run by different people, like the news divisions of respective different,
I'm not entirely sure how all the network conglomerates are organized, but I mean NBC being the network that we're talking about here.
Well, I guess I just want to focus on these like nightly news people because that's what Brian Williams is, a nightly news guy. That whole idea of the heir to like the Walter Cronkite, 7:00 news national thing. When it used to be an institution, he's the current standard bearer of that on that network. But that's an era that's already been dying for a long time. So it's kind of like, okay, congratulations, you're one of the few people still kind of doing this. I mean, ABC doesn't even do that anymore, do they? World News Tonight, no, I think maybe they do, but it's not a very highly rated thing anymore. It used to be appointment viewing.
Fox News does, and they have Brett Baer, and don't even get me started on that asshole. But
it's just, but it's almost like they need to invent these stories about themselves to grab ratings. That's really what's going on here. They're eating each other in a dying medium.
Okay, but here's the connection I want to make. Okay, if you have that going on from what's supposed to be a reputable source, NBC, is it really that far-fetched that you have basically vaccine deniers going all over the place, gaining credibility, and people saying, oh, wow, vaccines really don't work. Look, somebody somewhere I heard about getting polio, and there's supposed to be a vaccine for that. And you've got the Donald Trumps and the Jenny McCarthys and the Sarah Palins of the world being taken seriously in politics and seriously as candidates, right? If you These things are not mutually exclusive. This is what happens. We're living in an age where information is processed so rapidly
Yeah.
that a lot of shit is going to get in. But what we're learning with
It's
this
so
Brian
easy
Williams
to
example,
spread that
yes,
it's for both sides. It's easy to spread. Bullshit
but
spreads quicker than it used
but
to.
what we're learning, what I think we're learning, another important takeaway here is that what has been mainstream and accepted for the last 60 years or so, the Brian Williams example proves, it's always been bullshit too. It's that now you have so many competing brands of bullshit that the one that's supposed to be mainstream suddenly doesn't look any different. And I think a lot of people are terrified of that. Oh no, we don't all have one mainstream brand of bullshit to unite behind. That's a good thing.
Well, I don't know. I feel like the bullshit, like any virus, has mutated over the decades. That things were distilled down before, but now there's like a literal, like, ratings spin added to it that kind of didn't used to be there. A lot of the old salts, they've seen this. It's like we simply didn't function this way back in the day. We just didn't.
See, I don't know. I feel like, yes, the bullshit has gotten a little more egregious, gotten a little more unapologetic. Like, now people will actually come out and talk about chemtrails conspiracies or false flag attacks. Oh, the Boston Marathon bombing didn't happen. Or, oh, Israel was behind the Charlie Hebdo attack.
Oh, Jesus.
Or vaccine. This shit now, people are actually coming out and speaking in public and expecting to be taken seriously. It gives me the creep.
When you have a full-on rebellion against the mainstream that we've had in the last 20 years, then yeah, that stuff's going to start to bubble up, I suppose. Right. But that's the one thing, is that news used to be something that was required of networks to have, so they would have it. But the singular idea that it could be a ratings driver in and of itself was the beginning of the end. I mean, that was the idea that started killing it, whatever integrity it ever had. That's the difference.
I feel like, honestly, news has always been this bad. It's just that we didn't have anything to compare it against. And now, in a world where you have idiots screaming about vaccines and chemtrails and false flags and all that, you also have people that are very intelligent, that are very motivated, that are very devoted to empiricism, that are pointing out how full of shit the news is. Because that kind of non-monopoly on information works in both directions. So I think that you're still giving the news from 30, 40 years ago more credibility than it deserves. It's not that it wasn't contentious. Of course it was contentious, but it actually was more horseshit than we think it was now.
Well, I mean, I don't think, any news is necessarily completely above reproach. It always should be questioned, but there was a tinge to it that before that there isn't there now of integrity, but yeah, it's thrown out the window nowadays, it seems like.
So this has been an interesting show, because we didn't really have necessarily a topic of discussion other than just the lack of one. And
kind of screaming at the sky kind of show.
But right, at the chemtrails?
Yes, because they're controlling me. Yeah, anyway.
Yeah, because that's making us scream. But here's the thing. I feel like, honestly, we're living in an age where a lot of my predictions, a lot of our predictions are coming true, politically speaking. I mean, the Republican Party is shambles. And you have the Rand Pauls and Mike Huggabees and Mitt Romneys, and these guys are all very different from each other. And yes, they all have their brand of stupid, including Rand Paul, who I like. But they are very different, like I said they would be. And going into the election cycle, I mean, I can't wait. I'm just sitting here.
It's going to be entertaining.
This is going to be great. And I can't wait until the first real liberal, jumps into the Democratic primary and upsets Hillary. That's going to be far more entertaining than anything the Republicans can pull off. I can't believe anyone takes that bitch seriously. But as soon as you have a Warren or a Sanders in the race, everything is going to just flip upside down.
Why, someone besides Hillary? Great.
Yeah, anyone.
That's what's going to happen.
Jesus. And if you look at Europe, you look at what's going on there with Greece, and we didn't get into this for a reason, because that's a different show. But you look at what's going on there, I mean, this complete financial meltdown. And what gets me about it is these market jumps. I mean, when Syriza was elected, the market dropped, took a double-digit percentage point dive. And then when it looked like their little tour of all the European countries was going to make something and maybe they're going to make a deal, it recovered about 2/3 of that. And then the ECB punched them in the nose and said, no, we're not making a deal. And it all dropped right back. Like, are people really this fickle? I mean, these are investors. These are people that have money in the stock market. This is not your average Joe, right? I thought.
Well, it's like that in our stock market, too.
It is. And then I'm not even going to get into ISIS and Syria and just the hellhole.
It's still a clusterfuck, let's just put it that way.
Yeah, it's like, update, Syria's still a mess.
Update,
right?
You still fucked up? Yep, fucked up. All right.
Yeah, and Russia and Ukraine and all that. So everything, we talked about defederation and decentralization and just kind of the loss of faith in the central powers. And everything basically, countries realigning and politics, it's happening, folks. It's happening. And I guess the reason we did this show, and I'm kind of shocked, and this is something I didn't predict, is just the complete loss of insight that this is being accompanied by on the part of the average population. I should have predicted this. Like, people don't know what to do with this. There isn't really a neat two-party system anymore. And there isn't really, a neat neo-Keynesian market. It's all falling apart. And there aren't neat country borders like there used to be in places like Ukraine and the Middle East. All this shit's falling apart. This clarity and these specifics are only about 70 years old. It's not like it's always been this way. It's been this way as long as most people can remember. But if you know history, this isn't how it's always been. And yet people they're so tremendously lost and they so don't know what to do with this that they're resorting to things like bashing Obama for being Obama and saying vaccines don't work and just basically doing what Brian Williams did. And now all of a sudden wondering, oh, wow, that was bullshit too. So, we've come to that point where humanity is just looking at itself going, whoa, what the fuck? Wait, where am I?
Yeah, that's been kind of my experience of getting older. You realize everyone you thought knew something is all full of shit. It's kind of an interesting experience.
See, the difference is and I'm not trying to toot my own horn here, but I've always been a very voracious consumer of social science. I've always kind of felt this way. I've felt this way since I was 17 or 18, and you can attest to this. You remember me in high school and how I was.
I was just starting to at that point.
Right. I was always a skeptic, and it's funny, you would tell me, like, I remember having conversations with you, God, I'm more you by the minute, with, like, every time you realize something is full of shit. And I'm not trying to say I'm so great, because I'm not. It's just something I feel like I've always acknowledged, and it makes it difficult for me to realize that the rest of humanity is only now catching on. It's like, and they're not catching on. They're looking for any way to latch on to these old stereotypes because the new ones haven't been created yet.
Right.
So, like I said, chips and beer, ready to go. I'm loving this. I'm watching it.
Yeah. Get your alcohol choice ready. It should be a fun ride, at least.
Yeah, but, next show, maybe we'll take things a little more seriously, and we'll talk about some of the implications. And this really is bad for a lot of people. I do feel bad for a lot of people involved in this, whether it's the poor here in the U.S., whether it's the middle class in places like Ukraine, or in Greece or in Cyprus that are just having their life savings eliminated. People our parents' age by this economic crisis,
right.
Or whether it's people in Syria that mostly have nothing to do with this psycho-religious warfare, and now they're just being eradicated by it. So they're just kind of trapped in all. They have nowhere to go. Mm-hmm. So there is a lot of we've kind of laughed at it this show, but there is a lot.
It's tragic laughter
involved in this, and I guess it's kind of normal when you have big changes and big realignments politically, but that doesn't make me any happier about it.
Yeah, well, what can you do? That's life for you. It'll kick you in the face. Right. Happy days are here again. I'm just kidding, but no.
Yeah, circus days are here again.
Yeah.
The circus,
just like I said, have that little tune in the back of your head in the next year's do. Yeah, that's how you're gonna get through it. That's how I'm doing it.
Yeah, there's a reason clowns paint on their smiles because they might not actually be smiling underneath, and that's kind of what I feel like is going on in the world, and it's really more depressing than it's funny. But I did predict this for what it's worth.
On that note, thank you for listening to this.
We'll see you next time on Neurotoxin.
I'm Joe Ryan. Thank you for listening to The Edge of Chaos. We can be found on the internet at edgeofchaospodcast.com. That's edgeofchaospodcast.com. Contact the show, Edge of Chaos Podcast at gmail.com. Follow us on Twitter at Edge of Chaos Show. We can also be found on Facebook at facebook.com/The Edge of Chaos. Neurotoxins blog can be found at neurotoxins with an S, fyg.blogspot.com. For Neurotoxin, this is Joe Ryan. Thank you for listening to The Edge of Chaos.
Okay, we're going to get right to it tonight. Big story out of the Nightly Show Disease Center.
Hospitals on alert for measles as an outbreak of the highly contagious illness continues to spread. A majority of the nearly 80 reported infections are in California. The epidemic apparently originated at Disneyland.
That's right, measles at Disneyland. Now, thank God I stopped going after they closed Captain EO. That was just my little protest. Now, look, I know to a lot of you youngsketeers, I know. That's what you call yourselves nowadays, right? I haven't been keeping up. Whatever. Okay, look. I'm sure measles doesn't sound that serious, right? It probably just sounds like an adorable floppy-eared puppy. Hey, measles. How's my little measles? Measles! Measles did a bad thing. But measles is pretty serious. It's no puppy dog, but it is a bitch.
Fever, runny nose, ends up with blindness, swelling of brain, and death.
Brain swelling and death? You might as well let your kids play football. Right? That's right. So, okay, all right. What happened here? I mean, is it like the flu shot? Did we just run out of the vaccine? I mean, I thought we eradicated measles for good in the year 2000 along with the Baja Men. Okay, well, look. Well, thank God we have a vaccination.
Most of those cases involve patients who never received a measles vaccination.
What? Well, why can't they get it? Can they not afford it? Or, I mean, are they being kept away? Is this Obamacare?
Skipping shots has become a growing trend in parts of California.
A trend? This is your children's health, not culottes. I mean, why would people want to expose their kids to measles? It doesn't even make sense.
Many still fear that the vaccines might cause autism.
Oh, okay. All right. Okay. Well, that sounds serious. Okay. So, all right. So which doctor do we have to thank for bringing this to our attention?
Call it the Jenny effect.
TV host Jenny McCarthy is known by many as an autism activist.
I do believe that there is a correlation between vaccinations and autism.
The reason why they're not vaccinating is because the vaccines are not safe.
Oh, for sake, Jenny McCarthy? Look, maybe it's just me, but I don't think it's a good idea to take medical advice from a non-doctor, all right? I mean, a lot of my old friends disagreed, and I miss them every day. I didn't know many of you had these, okay? All right. No, but seriously, here's the deal. Jenny McCarthy went on the Oprah Winfrey Show in 2007 to talk about the link between autism and vaccinations and said, first thing I did, Google. I put in autism and I started my research. The University of Google is where I got my degree from. Google University. Man, that must be an awesome school, man. I mean, after all, how else would she have acquired enough knowledge to write 3 books on autism? 3. All right, now look, to be fair, I mean, Jenny was primarily influenced by a paper written by a Dr. Andrew Wakefield, so at least her source was a doctor.
The supposed link between autism and vaccines was championed by British scientist Andrew Wakefield, but his paper was discredited.
He took $600,000 from lawyers to actually do the study and was proven to show that the study was fraudulent, that he coerced patients. He actually isn't even a doctor anymore. We call him Mr. Wakefield.
Oh, wait, I got one. We don't call him a doctor anymore. We call him the Hippocratic Oath. Right? Great. Okay, seriously, what do legitimate doctors have to say?
The Pediatric Society, the CDC, every international organization, WHO, everybody comes down out of the mainstream on the view that vaccines are absolutely crucial to good health.
Vaccines do not cause autism, and I know that there's been a lot of back and forth on this. I've been reporting on this issue for 13 years. People, it's remarkable how emotional this topic gets. Correlation does not equal causation.
Snap! Jenny McCarthy, you just got served a dish of goop duck. All right. Kidding aside, let me tell you why this story is so frustrating. Look, please break it down for us, Melinda Gates.
We take vaccines so for granted in the United States. We're so used to taking our kids in. Women in the developing world know the power of these. They will walk 10 kilometers in the heat with their child and line up to get a vaccine because they have seen death. We've forgotten what measles deaths look like.
Exactly. Look, about 400 people worldwide still die from measles every day, but most of them live in developing countries. And now one of those developing countries is called Disneyland. Look, guys, we're all familiar with the term first world problem, right? It's when rich Americans complain about something that people in other parts of the world might consider a byproduct of luxury. You know, like when I have to turn on the subtitles on Netflix because I'm eating Doritos too loudly, right? You know what I'm talking about. Yeah. We all can relate to that. We're Americans. That's how we roll, right? Well, this vaccine thing, it's one of those. Look, we took a problem that we had nearly eradicated and made it ultra relevant again. Measles is now the Matthew McConaughey of infectious disease. I hope you're happy. We'll be right back.